guys, good evening. In behalf of Pastora Daphne Vicente, I am Pastora Ria Ellah Caberos. Tonight, we will learn the Word of God in the book of Daniel. So tonight, let us study Daniel 4. So it was a story about the king Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He dreamt of a tree. So he called all the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and fortune tellers. But no one could tell him the meaning of his dream. And so he requested for Daniel. So Daniel said in chapter 4, I'll read verse 19. I'll start at verse 19. Upon hearing this, Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, was overcome for a time, frightened by the meaning of the dream. Then the king said to him, Belteshazzar, don't be alarmed by the dream and what it means. Belteshazzar replied, I wish the events foreshadowed in this dream would happen to your enemies, my lord, and not to you. The tree you saw was growing very tall and strong, reaching high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves and was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade, and birds nested in its branches. That tree, your majesty, is you, for you have grown strong and great. Your greatness reaches up to heaven, and your rule to the ends of the earth. Then you saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump and the roots in the ground, bound with a band of iron and bronze and surrounded by tender grass. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the wild animals of the field for 7 periods of time. This is what the dream means, your majesty, and what the Most High has declared will happen to you, my lord, the king. Verse 25, you will be driven from human society, and you will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow, and you will be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. But the stump and roots of the tree were left in the ground. This means that you will receive your kingdom back again when you have learned that heaven rules. 27, King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right. Break from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor. Perhaps then you will continue to prosper. Tonight, as I've read the passage, Daniel explained the meaning of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And for me, it was a warning. It was a warning. And many times, as we ponder on this text in the Bible, many times, God would send a man of God in our lives, or God would just send someone to remind us maybe, or maybe to rebuke us. And in some ways, we are hurt. Or maybe in some ways, in one way or another, we were insulted. We just feel like, who are you? Who are you to remind me? Or who are you to say these things to me? But dear brothers and sisters, in this context, in this passage of the Bible, it was Daniel that God used to relay the warning to King Nebuchadnezzar. And in verse 29, 12 months later, meaning after a year that Daniel interpreted the king's dream, 12 months later, he was taking a walk on the flat roof of the royal palace in Babylon. As he looked out across the city, he said, "Look at this great city. Look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor." I'd like you to take note, to take heed of the word my. This is my, by my own. It is the will of God that we will be prospered, right? But it is not the will of God that we take the glory. Again, brothers and sisters, it is the will of God that you will be prospered. It is the will of God that you will be increased. It is the will of God for your territory to be enlarged. But the desire of the Lord is wherever God would take you, at the end of it, you will say, "It was God. It was God." It's not by my, with my. And in verse 31 to 33, while these words, while Nebuchadnezzar was saying, "By my, I built this by my," as he was saying that, while these words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone that he chooses." That same hour, the judgment was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow, and he was drenched with the dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws. The story somehow would somehow check us out. What's in our heart today? Maybe you've reached the top of your career, or maybe right now you are at the top of your life. And it's not bad. It's not bad at all. But it becomes bad when our heart is contaminated and convinced of the idea that it was all because of I. It was all because of you. You see, when our hearts becomes prideful, when pride sets in our hearts with regards to our achievements, then brothers and sisters, it could be our downfall. But always remember, no, that before the dream was fulfilled, God used Daniel to warning, to instruct King Nebuchadnezzar. And we all know the story that the king did not listen. Many times God would send his servants, God would send people to give us warning, to check us out that, hey, this is what you're doing. If you do this, then God will do this. But somehow many times we rejected the warnings of the Lord, because for us somehow we are convinced that we are right. And maybe we are convinced that I've reached this far and this is all because of me. This is all because I worked hard for this. Maybe you worked hard for whatever you have today, but always remember that it was God who connected you to the right people at the right time. It was God who has given us the strength. It was God who gives us the knowledge and understanding. It was God who has given us everything that we needed for us to journey and for us to come where we are right now. My prayer, brothers and sisters, that we will be reminded of a kingdom principle, and that is humility. That is what? That is humility. In verse 34, after this time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven. My sanity returned, and I praised and worshiped the Most High and honored the one who lives forever. His rule is everlasting, and his kingdom is eternal. All the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can stop him or say to him, "What do you mean by doing these things?" This is King Nebuchadnezzar. This is King Nebuchadnezzar acknowledging that there is God and that God is real and that God will do as he pleases. 36, when my sanity returned to me, so did my honor and glory and kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored as head of my kingdom with even greater honor than before. You see, humility precedes honor. It's humility should come first before we will be honored. When God humbles us, when we humble ourselves before God, God will lift us up. But when we become prideful, then God will humble us down. It is only God that it's the discipline of the Lord that is too painful. But God will do everything. God will do everything so that you and I will be humbled. He is God. He is in control. And whatever we have today, God gives, but also God takes away. Let us not forget that everything that we have is all from the Lord. And my prayer, brothers and sisters, that if there is a man of God in your life today who's giving you reminders, or maybe who's giving you instructions, at some point maybe they are giving you warnings, my prayer is that you will take heed and that you will listen. Do not wait for the Lord to humble us down because it's too painful and it is too hard. My prayer is that all of us tonight has been blessed with the word. Again, if we will humble ourselves, God will lift us up. But when we are prideful, God will humble us down. Please share this word of encouragement tonight so that your friends, your loved ones could also hear the word of God. God bless everyone.